us on Instagram
Better follow me
at Philly Jam 95.3 FM.
Good evening and welcome to the Rebirth on Philly Jamz 95.3. I am your host, Shay Marriott, and tonight I have a special guest host.
Hello.
Hello.
Long time no see.
Yeah, right.
I was still living in the Rebirth.
Right.
I was in the back.
Welcome, friend to the
Thank
show.
you. Appreciate it.
Want to
Thanks for
introduce
inviting
yourself?
me. So, hello, everybody. I've been here about a couple times. So, friend to the show, my name is Wilkerson, and I'm happy to be here. So, hope you all are tuned in and ready to lock in for this tonight. I think it's the last show.
Yes,
right?
it is. It is our last show of the year.
Aw.
That's exciting.
It is. It is exciting.
It is
people time to
exciting.
Enjoy the holidays and give you all a much needed break, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Your sister is tired.
She's tired. Up all night working on this stuff, y'all. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, tonight is the last show for 2022. However, I will say this. I have to give a special thank you because it's a lot that goes into the Rebirth. I got to give a shout out to Tasha LaQueen. She holds it down for us behind the scenes. Got to give a shout out to Jen Marshall.
Clap.
She also holds it down, and she is also my assistant.
Oh.
So, yeah, she's official. So she's really been helping me out, so I appreciate that. Shout out to Eli. He is not here tonight. He was out celebrating all weekend in Arkansas, his 50th. So happy 50th, bro, and I definitely miss you. But we have an awesome person standing in your place tonight, Corey. And Corey, thank you for always stepping in and coming and sharing your knowledge, because you definitely be dropping them gems.
I tried. A little bit.
You know, you had the pastor going when we did the Rebirth
I
Live.
sure did, respectfully. I'm still saying respectfully. I see a pastor. I'm like, respectfully.
Respectfully.
In case y'all had a meeting. And, you know, God is working on y'all, not me no more.
Yes. But this has been an amazing 2022. A lot has been done. We have Rebirth at Philly Jamz 95.3 and Rebirth have brought you two amazing, successful Rebirth live shows. And I'm telling you, we sold out both times. It was great conversation. What else happened in 2022? I dropped a book.
Dropped a book.
I dropped,
Congratulations.
yep. I dropped a book, My Rebirth Self-Healing Journey.
Nice.
So, I mean, I'm so excited, and I think that Rebirth is going to be even 10 times better in 2023 because we got a lot of great things coming and some changes that's going to be coming up. And we also have the Rebirth Live Volume 3.
Volume 3.
The men's edition.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so you on that, right?
I'm on that?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yep. You got to.
Absolutely. But congratulations on y'all's success. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
You just set the bar for 2023.
Oh, man.
Right? Set it
That's
up
why I
there.
need to rest.
There you
All
go.
right, I need to take this.
You do.
I need to take this month off and
sure.
rest. So if you're just joining us, again, welcome to Rebirth on Philly Jamz 95.3. Hey, if you'd like to tune in tonight for the conversation, if you'd like to give us a call, please give us a call at 267-908-3166. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Rebirth_radio, and Philly Jamz 95.3. So we got a great show for you tonight.
Yes. Talking about emotional intelligence. Period. That's a period within itself.
It is.
Right?
It
But also
is.
emotional intelligence throughout your relationships, you know, whether that's romantically, whether that's your friendships, whether that's your family. And we were talking before we went live is that a lot of people don't have it. They think they do. Or we think we do. Corey
Yeah.
included. We think we do.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people don't have it, and I don't think a lot of people even know what emotional intelligence is. And
This
I'm
is
not
true.
being smart, but I don't think people clearly really understand the definition of what emotional intelligence is. So Corey and I are going to help you with that. And I want you guys to, if you have a pen and paper, take some notes because this is important. We are all about bettering yourself, especially with the new year coming in, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't,
Is that a New Year's resolution?
I don't really get down with the resolutions because I feel like it's always, people always break it, right?
Yeah, it's true.
But I think that you should naturally want to be better, than you were the year before.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing is that, it's a yearly thing, a daily thing, and a weekly thing. You should always be trying to work on yourself to get better for yourself and then better for those that are around you, right? So, we should also be challenging ourselves. One of the things that we touched on when we were at the live event is that not only recognizing when you see a red flag, but recognizing that you have them.
Yes.
Right. And then, if you recognize
Yes.
that you have them, then you can improve yourself for the better and the greater good. So it starts with you first.
Absolutely.
And then you can kind of produce from there.
I
right?
love when you brought that up
Yeah.
because, to be honest with you, we quick, especially women, y'all. We quick to spout out a red flag.
I ain't saying You got red on too. Oh.
I got red on too, right? We are quick to spot out a red flag, but we do not do a self-evaluation. Everybody has red flags.
True that.
You know what I'm saying? A woman that has children might be a red flag for a man that don't have kids.
Yeah, right.
A person that's divorced
Yeah.
might be a red flag for someone who is single that's never been married.
Yep.
Right? So it really depends. So yeah, I mean,
And recognizing your triggers in life, you know what I mean? And recognize that they are triggers, and again, like triggers can go away. Doesn't mean that it's something that stays with you forever, but it's something that if you're committed to working on, kind of like what you were saying, should be working to improve ourselves and how we communicate with each other and how do we listen. Like part of emotional intelligence, I would imagine, is being able to take in information as well as give it out. We're quick to give it,
absolutely.
right? But how do we listen and take it in for ourselves is super important.
Absolutely. You brought up the word triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Triggers are reminders of the part of you that is unhealed. Y'all like that? You like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna break that down. Triggers.
I just did a Corey on you.
Yeah, you did. Triggers are the part. Yeah, I got you. That's
it's
good.
It's a reminder. Triggers are a reminder of the part of you that's unhealed.
That's good.
Because, we are quick to say, oh, I'm healed. I'm over that. I've been working on me, all of this other stuff. But something will come up and it will trigger us. And if it triggered you, if it caused some type of reaction or, even if it caused your mood to just go in a different place, that's a reminder that that's something you still got to heal.
True. Now, how would you say that? That was a good say. We're going to have to unpack that a little bit. That was good. I get caught up. So sometimes I'm a fan, but I'm also on the show. But, when you say that, I think that's the thing. If we tell ourselves, okay, I'm being triggered, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's kind of self-regulating yourself. I think that was part of one of the components of emotional intelligence, but self-regulating yourself and being able to say, okay, what part of that triggered me? And sometimes we don't catch that until after we react, right? Yep. And then we have to bring it back. But I think to your point, that's an excellent point, right? It's what part of this is triggering me and why am I having this level of reaction? And really addressing that.
Absolutely.
So that's good.
Absolutely. Right, dead on point. And like you said, unpacking it.
Yep.
What's happening? Where is it coming from? And then work on it.
100%.
All right, so let's give the definition of emotional intelligence so we can get into this. So you guys know, we're going to set the foundation so you know where we're coming from. So emotional intelligence means recognizing and understanding and managing not only your emotions, but others. Now, obviously, you can't manage other people's emotions, but you can recognize and understand that.
Agreed.
Right? So that's what emotional intelligence is. Recognizing, understanding, and managing your emotions. So there's 4 keys to this.
Okay.
There's 4 keys to this, and we are going to break them down. The first one is self-regulation. Self-regulation. Now, you said earlier that this is we're not just talking about our intimate relationships. We're talking about relationships, period. Relationships with your friends, with your family, with yourself.
Yeah.
With your coworkers, all of that.
Yeah.
So self-regulation.
Yeah, I think the thing is I'm sure there's other ones that are super important, but I think self-regulation is the foundation to having good emotional intelligence, or at least the start to doing it the right way. To your point earlier, knowing when you're being triggered is super important. But where do you go to kind of regulate yourself sometimes we have to practice pause. I know one of those things we used to talk about is how do you practice pausing? Something triggers you. Do you react immediately? Do you take a couple of minutes to think about it before you respond? Where is this coming from? How am I going to respond? What's going to happen after I respond?
Right.
Right. But those things are super important. Maybe asking questions first, not only of yourself, but the person that's kind of involved and kind of unpacking first. And why am I having this reaction? Because sometimes that's the thing that you're covering up based off of what you're responding to inside of the conversation that you're not being honest about.
Definitely, definitely. Now, when I think about self-regulation, so I have to go back to a child, right? Because it's actually, that is a skill you are supposed to learn as a child. Yeah. Your parent is supposed to teach you how to self-regulate your emotions. So when you see kids that are throwing tantrums, and you know, I know you all witnessed a child in a grocery store, and they just spazzing out or whatever, and they cannot stop. Now I'm not talking about a baby. I'm talking about maybe like a 5, 4, 6-year-old. Okay. A child that should be able to like learn how to calm themselves down. If you see that going on, they don't have any self-regulation skills because that has not been taught to them, right? So truthfully, it starts as a child. But if you really think about it, we have adults walking around that do not know how to regulate their emotions. And what does that look like? What does that look like? An adult that has unregulated emotions.
Yeah, I think the thing is too, and we have to correct it for ourselves because that only trickles down into your child, right? And if you can't self-regulate yourself, your kids are definitely not going to be able to do that. Absolutely. Right? And I used to, kind of just thinking about like, how do we do it culturally? What's the difference between culturally? Because you may see other ethnicities or other people just flipping out. Like, they'll get it together eventually while I'm over here in the eggs, right?
Right.
But with our culture, we grip them up quick. Right. Like, it's something
and
to
we
be said.
Our lip. What
Yeah,
don't you
that, catch that bruise on your arm, you already know. Or we got the look, right? You get the look.
Real tight, right?
Right? You got that look like,
exactly.
You better sit down.
Yeah, wait till I get you home.
Right? So I think, but what is the balance in that though, right? Because I think there's a balance between how maybe culturally we're raised in the African American community and other cultures, right? Because I think that I'm not saying that we do it 100% wrong either, but I think that we have to find balance because I think sometimes like we create PTSD, right? And when I was just thinking about when I've just been on this journey around like imposter syndrome, right? Right. Or wanting validation from certain people, and sometimes that comes from maybe from males, not necessarily getting that self-validation growing up. Right? So you tend to act out. You tend to have these tantrums. You tend to, when you get older, how does that manifest later? Right? In anger issues or not being able to talk correctly, right? So when you talk about self-regulating yourself, how do you teach your children to feel what you feel, but be able to express it later, right? Yeah. And if you think about some of the things like, you're a parent, I'm a parent, right? How would I do it differently, right? How do I teach my son to communicate differently, or how do you teach your daughter to communicate differently to you as a parent, right? So that there's balance. So I think it turns out a lot of different ways because we just become grown kids. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Because then now I don't know how to communicate to you as my spouse or as my friend or as my sister. I don't know how to communicate. Yeah. Just getting mad and flipping out.
Right. And that's usually the word that is for every emotion that we may be feeling. I'm mad or I'm angry. Right. And that might not be the case. You may be frustrated. Yeah, true. You may be disappointed. Right. You may be hurt. Yeah. Right? But the only emotion that we know how to really express verbally is like, I'm mad, I'm pissed, I'm angry. And that's not really the case.
Yeah. And where do we learn that from though? Right? So like when you know how to express your emotion and you're so comfortable expressing anger, but you can't express kind words, or you can't express you call it anger, but to your point, it could be disappointment, it could be hurt, it could be a lot of different things that you're trying to express. And if you name it what it is, it may help you communicate it differently. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm not angry, I'm hurt. Right. And then I can accept the hurt versus the anger, because I'm going to challenge the anger. What you angry about? Exactly. What the hell are you mad about, right? Right. But if I hurt you, I can't really say, I can't tell you how to feel, right? I can ask more questions, right? And I think inside of all of these things that we're kind of talking about, it helps you regulate yourself, the conversation, and hopefully the desired outcome before you get to anything else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And to your point, it happens with our children, or it happens throughout the course of our lives inside of the relationship, because that's important. You need relationships to manifest through life.
Absolutely. And you were saying, like, how do we get there? I think a lot of times too, I mean, think about as a child, I think that we don't give our children the vocabulary to be able to say how they're feeling. We don't teach them the vocabulary. We don't teach them the emotions. You know, if you go into like a therapist's office that works with children, you'll see the smiley faces or the faces, and it has different emotions on there, and it has words: happy, sad, excited, frustrated, you know. And when a child has a hard time expressing how they're feeling, we will ask them to point to, you know, the picture, right? And then we will give them that word. I think a lot of times where it comes from as adults is because as a child, our parents, some parents, tell them what the child is feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you will all, and just like when a kid is being defiant, you know, you may hear a parent saying, "Stop being bad." And the child, it's not that the child purposely wants to be bad. Maybe he or she is just trying to get your attention.
Yeah, true.
Right?
True.
So I think that a lot of times it's labeled or it's identified for us where we're not able to really express it. At that Rebirth Live event, when something you did, and I know we've talked about this over and over again, but I thought it was just a monumental moment, is when one of the panel members were talking that happened to be a female, and she was making a point, but it was a point that was supposed to be made by, because the question was geared to the men. And you said respectfully 7 times, and then you said, "This is why we don't talk."
Correct.
This is why we don't talk.
Correct.
And that was like chills. Seriously, chills actually went through me, because I was just like, "Yo, did he just say that?" Like, wow. And it was like, it needed to be said, because it was a perfect example of why men shut down or withdraw from the conversation when it comes down to, you know, especially when it comes down to a woman and man that's trying to communicate.
It was so funny, because after the show was over, how many men walked up to me and said, "Man, I'm glad you said it. I was going to say it, but you know, I got to go home with it, man." So,
Right.
But I think to the point, sometimes inside of our conversations and our communication styles, inside of our relationships, those things need to happen, and we have to get comfortable with calling those things out respectfully, right?
Absolutely.
Because if I'm cutting you off, that's not, nobody likes that, right? But I think it's key that you set the stage to pause and say, "Okay, here's the thing. I heard what you said. Respectfully, I'm going to have to disagree. And here's why." And I think in that moment, it couldn't have been set up any better, because it was happening as we were talking.
It was happening,
right?
As we were
and I think those are the things that we have to continue to get better at, right? And, you know, if you didn't see it, please go, you know, the link, and you can go check it out. But, you know, it was really just around, the question was around, you know, why do men feel comfortable talking in front of and so on, or sharing their feelings? And as soon as we did, it was met with not resistance, but it was meant to say, "Well, but, you know, here's the reason why." Right. And I think we do that inside of our conversations and communication, right? We are not listening to understand or hear. We're waiting for our turn to speak.
Yes.
And if you take too long, then we just going to jump out the window.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was super important. But again, all of that is, you know, part of self-regulation. Because I had to self-regulate myself to wait for her to finish. Right? Because I was like, "Yo, I got to hit this." Okay. I'm going to do this. All right, so I got to send this to pastor. So I got to pray first. Right? So, but yeah, it was, you know, it was important.
I thought you did it. I mean, you were very gentle with very gentle with making your point. Yeah. So, and it wasn't done disrespectfully, and it wasn't done in a way to embarrass her either. Right. You know, because it was just like, you know, if you notice, she's like, and like, okay, you know.
Sorry.
So
had to give you that one.
Yeah, but definitely you guys can catch that if you go to iHeart Radio and go to Philly Jamz and look for Rebirth. Volume 2, Love, Lost, and Relationships. That it was an amazing conversation. I think it was like 2 hours of taping.
Yeah.
Just listen to it, man, and play it back. I'm telling you, you will definitely learn a lot from that conversation. So the last thing I wanted to mention about self-regulation is, and I don't think people really realize this as well, is the lack of impulse. So like you said, not listening to hear, but waiting to actually respond. That's an impulse thing, right? And then the cutting off thing is also an impulse, lack of impulse. You're not having that impulse control, flying off on a handle, jumping to conclusions, just going off. You mad, you angry, you frustrated, maybe you like to throw stuff across the room. You're not thinking about it, That's not having impulse control. So that's also part of learning how to self-regulate.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I want to talk about too is just to mention that this is something that we don't all have together. You have to teach yourself this, right? So I'm 41. I just turned 41 yesterday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. But I had to physically teach myself, and sometimes when somebody is talking and I want to speak, I even have to cover my mouth, right, and just put my shirt up and just cover my mouth so I don't interrupt. Or maybe I have to write it down. Like if you watch, we were.
Yeah, you do a lot of writing.
I write it down because I want to write down what I
good.
want to say, but it's distracting me from jumping in too, right? So sometimes you have to teach yourself how to communicate effectively, and sometimes it's just being quiet.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Bishop said, he said he had to sit on his hands.
Right. See.
Because he wanted to talk so bad, he had to sit on his hands, and literally he was sitting on his hands.
That's it. For sure.
So, all right. So the next one would be self-awareness. Self-awareness. How many are you self-aware? Do you think you're self-aware?
I think I'm self-aware most of the time, but I do recognize is that in moments where I'm triggered, am I as self-aware as that I need to be, right? Because I think to your point, you talk about impulse and things like that. I know the things that potentially bother me. Sometimes you don't know until you get hit.
No.
Right? It's all good until somebody says something like, "Oh, whoa."
Physically or verbally?
Oh, verbally. I mean, you might get hit too, right? You might get hit too. You talking about throwing stuff across the room? Like, all right, well, I can't impulse this. I'm bleeding. But
right.
I think the thing is you can be self-aware. I think you initially go into things with a plan. And I remember a long time ago, a female said to me, "You never know what you're gonna do until you get to the situation." And before you go into, if this happened, this is what's happening.
Right.
And that's not always the case, right?
Nah.
So you have to be self-aware enough to be aware that you have to grow. And I know that about myself today. I'm self-aware enough to know that I don't have it all together, right? And I think in some cases that you feel like you do, just based off of your experience or, your ego and all of that type of stuff. But all of that comes to the checks at the door when things happen. So
absolutely.
Self-aware as much as you can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So so you guys will have the definition of what self-awareness is. It's the ability to recognize one's own emotions and make conclusions about your potential effects on one's thoughts and behavior.
Now, I do have a question for you. Now that being that you're a therapist.
Uh-oh.
Are therapists self-aware?
I don't think that all therapists are, no. And that's why we deal with this thing that we've all learned in grad school called oh my God, it just totally literally just flew out my mind. When you have, oh my God. Okay, I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say, but it's when you take on your client's stuff. Okay. Right? And you're experiencing, why can't this word come to me? This is crazy. And you bet not say because I'm 50. Okay. I heard, I see you, Tasha and Jen. It starts with a T though. But anyway, it's important for therapists to be self-aware. Okay. Because if not, you can easily break the code of ethics. Gotcha. We have a code of ethics that we have to follow as therapists. Okay. Within our relationships, right? So if you're not aware of how you're coming off, if you're not self-aware of even your body language, right? Especially, if you're a female and you're working with a male, you got to be self-aware about what signals you are putting out there, because it can be taken the wrong way, you know? So I don't think that, I think a lot of us have to work on that, you know, but I think for the most part, we are trained to be self-aware because that's part of our job.
I just always wonder, like, once you get home, it's like a chef. Like, I wonder, do chefs really cook when they get in the house? Like, I'm not cooking nothing, right? But when you get into your own personal life and you put the coat up, right, and you walk through your door, those tools stay in your coat at the door. Or, you know, when you get in the house, then you just become Shay now. Like, right. I don't know if I have all of these tools right now because Tyrone, you done triggered me, and now I'm to the point where I'm about to just respond to you.
And you know what? It's actually the opposite.
Good.
I think what a lot of therapists have a hard time doing is taking off the therapeutic hat. So, you would hear people say, "Oh, you therapizing me right now." You know, right? You therapizing me right now. When you just may be having a simple conversation, but because of the tone that I'm speaking in, because I'm actually really trying to listen and understand your feelings, now you think you're in a session.
Got you.
And I used to get that a lot, to be honest with you. You know, I did, and it's just like, no, I'm just literally listening. You're not used to people just listening to you.
Right, you talking in that soft tone,
right? Yeah,
Calm down.
It's just like, wait a minute, you therapizing me, right? So, the word I was looking for was transference. Okay. Transference and counter-transference. Thank you, because I'm like, where did that word go from? I had totally lost it. But yeah, I do think with the self-awareness, I think a lot of therapists have a hard time taking the hat off.
Gotcha.
We can, a good friend of mine, and if she's listening, she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She was watching a movie with her boo. And through the whole movie, she was diagnosing the character, saying this was wrong with this was, you know, and I do that as well, but I kind of keep it in my head. I keep it in my head, you know. But she was doing this through the whole movie, and he became annoyed with it, right? So to the point that he talked to me about it. He was like, "Yo, you know her better than me. Like, does she ever take that hat off?" So I had a conversation with her. I was like, "You gotta
chill.
You know,
like, how did you just take Nino Brown and turn him into like a soft puppy? He's a whole drug lord. Like, you made Nino Brown seem like he's narcissistic. He has problems. He was beat as a kid.
Got mama issues.
Yeah, like,
you know?
Okay, he's not even Nino Brown no more.
He just Wesley.
What was Wesley feeling? I'm like,
yes,
not
exactly.
Wesley no more. Yeah, I got you.
Another thing about being self-aware is, and you said being able to identify your triggers, absolutely. Also understanding your strength and as well as your, I don't like to say weaknesses, I like to say limitations.
Okay.
You know, because you can always change those limitations and into strengths. But to be able to identify that and be okay with that, you know, hey, I'm good in this area, but I'm not the best in this area, right. You know, and that's okay. And this is how we learn from people, because you may have a strength that is I'm not good at, right? But that's why we have conversation and talk, and maybe there's something you can add to me and I can add to you. Right. But you know, it doesn't always go like that. It doesn't always.
Yeah, that's true. We want real life. Sometimes we like a little drama.
Right.
Like, that adds spice to it a little bit.
Yep, exactly. So the next one is social awareness. This is a big one. I hope you guys are writing this down, because I really want you to really be truthful with yourself, to see, do you have all of these, and are you exercising this in your relationships and in your relationship with yourself? So social awareness is having empathy, understanding other people's emotions and needs, reading emotional cues and signals, and recognizing relationship dynamics. Now, unless you are on the spectrum, and I'm not being funny when I say this, unless you are on the spectrum, you should be able to read social cues and emotional cues. Now, you have people that are on the spectrum that is something that is part of their disorder. They don't understand social cues. You know, they don't understand emotional cues. So, social awareness, empathy.
Yeah, I think I struggle with that one. The social cues I get, right? Even if I overestimate them, meaning like I overreact to them, right? I try not to underreact, but I think that when, again, like we were saying at the top of the show, is that when you're triggered, it's hard to keep all of that together, right? Because you want to be heard. You also want to be validated. Sometimes there's a table turn, like we talked about the show, where we're talking about Shay's needs, and then based off of you triggering me, I flip it, and now we're talking about my needs, right?
Okay.
It's hard to be empathetic, sympathetic, have all of the social cues and all of these type of things when you just change the narrative of the conversation.
Right.
So now I done lost all of that, and now I'm just responding now, right? Because I want you to, okay, flip back on me. Hello, right? This is what we were talking about. So it's hard to do that and keep that together. So social cues, I think I'm pretty decent at, but always understanding what's on the other side of me. I'm trying to get better at that, right? I think there was remember at work, we were talking about just work stuff, and one of the questions that I thought was still powerful, which I still use, is what is your experience on the other side of me? Right? And when you answer that question, that's where you get challenged, because somebody telling you about you is not always the most comfortable thing to hear.
That's funny that you say that, because that is an exercise that I do with my clients. I ask them to ask the people in their circle, how do they experience them? How do they experience? And they was like, really? Yeah. Ask the people that's close to you. How do they experience you? And you have to be quiet and allow them to speak.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that we go through our day-to-day, you know, a lot of us have the same routine, bright light, but sorry.
Where were you on the top of the hour?
Yeah, right? I'm like, whoa.
They about to snitch. She had that first 48 light.
Sorry, y'all. That kind of caught me off guard. But a lot of us are not aware how we are coming off to others and how others are experiencing us. And sometimes people are totally experiencing us. Their experience of us is not what we think we're putting out there.
True. Very true. Yeah, I think that's super key. But I think the other, same point. Being able to take that in and hear that, because I think the thing that it's challenging is that what I'm putting out there and what my heart says to me, that I feel like I should be projecting or I'm trying to project, is two different things. And when your heart versus how you're showing up in the world conflicts, that's what we're battling, right? Like, you know my heart, girl. Like, or you know my heart, you know how I really feel. You know me, right? I get all that, but that's not what I'm perceiving.
Right.
And then especially, you know, the thing that I've always challenged people with, like, what if, so I get how you're receiving me, but what if that still has to do with you?
Yes.
Right? Like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Like,
exactly.
You know, just because you got a problem doesn't mean that I'm, like, jammed up. Like, I'm just this toxic person because you can't receive it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's where, again, to your point, those social cues go out the window. Because, like, gosh, see you reacting, and I just, you know, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
You just hit the nail on that, because I had a little experience of that just before I came to the show.
Traffic.
No, actually,
wasn't
it wasn't traffic.
Okay,
it was actually, and this was actually a text.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
Got you.
But the thing about it is, people take text out of, it really seriously. I mean, how can you? I don't know. I never get, unless I'm texting in all caps, which actually I told Tosh the night I was sending her something, and I happened to have the caps on, and I saw the caps was on. I said, hey, I wasn't yelling at you. I was like, I wasn't yelling at you. I just didn't turn my caps off. But, so I'm constantly I'm constantly just working throughout the day. I'm constantly working. So I'm not on the phone. And everybody in this room, they definitely can say, yep, she's right. I don't really have time to be on the phone with you, right? So if there is some information I need to shoot to you, or if you need to shoot me information, the best thing to do is just to text me, right? Now, usually my text is straight to the point if I'm in the middle of doing something, right? So I actually sent a text and I'm not gonna say to who it was or anything like that because they do watch the show.
Oh, okay.
But I sent the text just letting this person know some important information. And I said, hey, such and such, such and such and such. It was no caps. It was no nothing. Just straight details. Yeah. And the response was, hey, you could just pick up the phone and we can just have the conversation. I'm willing to, whatever. And because your text is coming across a little rough. Huh? I'm like, what was rough about it? Then I had to go back and reread it, and I'm like, dun 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 dun. Okay, and I was like, but then at the same time, I had to think about the person that I was speaking to.
Gotcha.
And when you said that, and I literally, and I responded back, and I said, no, I wasn't being rough. I was just to give you the details of what's coming down the line and just letting you know that was that. How was your day?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I do think that when people are going through things or they dealing with certain things or they're just in a place of always feeling like they gotta, that's a you thing. That has nothing to do with me. I'm working. I saw the email came across. I said, oh, let me send this right now so I won't forget. That way you have the information. And it was taken wrong, but to sum it up, it was laughing faces and then that was done and over with. So I'm like, so now when I talk to you, I got to make sure I put laughing faces there so you know that the information that I'm sending you, I'm being happy about. I don't know, like it doesn't make sense, Yeah. So I think that you do have to, again, that self-awareness. That's where self-awareness comes back into play.
Right.
Don't put that on somebody else because you took something out of context or you're upset about something. If you're rereading a text or someone say something to you, check yourself and see why are you feeling that way.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean that the person. Now you do have people that come off nasty, mean, rude, but that's a whole different thing when you're just having a conversation and now you're getting offended by something that I said.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes, but even inside of that, to your point, like you have to self-regulate yourself. And, granted, me, I had time to pick up the phone and kind of address it then and there. Mm-hmm. But, like, once I call you, then, like, what are we addressing? Like, I'm addressing the fact that you're offended. I'm not even communicating what I need to communicate to you. So, but, to your point, I think that we have to make sure that the way we are receiving information and the way we're delivering information, it's all a part of the emotional intelligence piece. And then you have to really check yourself to say, maybe I was tripping. Maybe you have to kind of like talk to yourself through it. And I think the other thing is like, do we feel like we all have time to do all of these things, right? Because emotional intelligence is something we need, but it's also like airport security. Like we want to get to the end of the front of the line. We don't want to have to. Then something happens, and then we want all of those self checks and balances, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that we have to just make sure that we're checking ourselves. What are the relationships that we feel like we need to implement these things for? But honestly, it's really for yourself. Again, back to what we were talking about, red flag, collecting or recognizing that you have them. You need to have, if you have a communication issue, you should know that you do. But you also should be improving your communication style because it's going to serve you in business. It's going to serve you personally. And it just really kind of serves you for yourself too. Like, how you show up and how you command the room or how you show up in a room, people recognize that.
Yeah.
And you always want to be received well.
And if you find that people don't want to be around you,
Might be you.
And you might want to check. Yeah, it's not always everybody else, dude. It got if you having these issues at work, my thing is this: if the issues are showing up in more than one place,
Facts. Yeah.
then it's you.
It's you. Yeah. And you got to be able to go get that medicine. You know what I'm saying? And you have to have somebody in your circle or around you that you trust enough to go have that hard conversation with you. And maybe it's not hard. It's just really a self-check, right? Just like you get checked up for your physical, you have to get checked for your mental and your communication style as well, because those things service you outside of anything else.
And I think the only people that usually have a hard time with that is narcissists, because it's hard to check a narcissist about how they making you feel, because that's part of their narcissism.
True. I was gonna ask you this question too. I don't know. I had this conversation a couple months ago. Don't you feel like today those words and terms are so overused? Like there's a place for them to be given. And I'm not saying it always has to happen in an office with a couch. But what I am saying, though, is that we are quick to label somebody narcissistic or bipolar or crazy or this and that, manic depression.
Yeah.
Because we don't agree with them.
Yeah.
Right? And just because we don't agree, or they're not necessarily taking our advice or whatever that looks like, doesn't mean that somebody is a narcissist or they're bipolar because they have a reaction to something they didn't like.
Right.
They just don't agree.
Yeah.
Right. And that's okay. And I think we have to be careful with like labeling people so quickly, and then also accepting labels, right? Because sometimes somebody will call you that and you will internalize that thing and be like, maybe I am. Yeah. Right. No, I just don't agree with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Prior to COVID or prior to 2012, like disagreements existed. Like it was okay. You know what I'm saying? So I 100% agree.
And just to speak on that a little bit, we all have narcissistic tendencies. Yeah. I mean, if you on social media, you have a narcissistic tendency. You know what I'm saying? If you're doing selfies, you got narcissistic tendencies, right? It doesn't mean that you have a narcissistic personality disorder. Those are two different things. You know, NPD is something more that, again, like I said, if it's showing up, the issues are showing up in more than one place, like you're having issues with work, you're having issues in your relationships, you're having issues with family members, now we're talking about something's going on here. This is something that's a personality thing, right? Versus you got people that, again, they love taking selfies, and that's fine. Or it has to always be about them. They got to have the spotlight, and that's fine. But they don't have the rest of the symptoms that come with that. Very true. Right? Very true. They just have narcissistic behaviors at times. I totally agree. We do label and are quick to say that. Just like with kids, when I used to work with, I see adults more. I still see some teenagers, but when I used to work with the younger kids, oh my God, they're like, Miss Shay, my mom is bipolar. She just bipolar. I'm like, well, why is your mom bipolar? Because I'm like, well, is she diagnosed as being bipolar? No, she was yelling at me. Well, why was she yelling at you? Because I didn't get up and get ready for school. Okay. So she's bipolar?
She's not bipolar.
But I definitely agree with that. When we talk about empathy, I think that is one thing that is really scary right now in the world. We have a lot of people that don't have empathy. Yeah. They're desensitized, very easy to take a life. They see, especially our younger people, they can walk. Some of these kids can walk over a dead body and it does not faze them. True. Depending on the environment that they were brought up in. Yeah.
I was looking at, obviously there's a lot of these, they call mass shootings are happening all over the place, right? So Virginia, I think it was Colorado, and there was a couple of ones, and I seen it on like my feed And I literally saw the headline, and I just kept scrolling. And as I kept scrolling, I'm like, I didn't even read it. Because you almost become desensitized. Like, this happens in America. Like,
Yep.
right? So, I think that it's to your point, I think it's super important that we just really look at what is possible that could be happening to that person. And not in all cases, because some people need to get their ass right. But what I am saying is that sometimes we have to really look at what is potentially happening for that person on the other side of what the decision that they made, right? Like you saw, like they were talking about the guy. I think it was Colorado when they shot up the LGBTQ nightclub.
Yeah.
The dad gets on TV, and he's more concerned of his son not being gay than what he did.
Oh wow, I didn't see that.
And he was just like, "Oh, he ain't gay." So he literally said that on live TV. Like, what? So, like, when you have those type of things going on, imagine what he was dealing with at home.
Yeah.
Right? The fear of what that is, and maybe he was. Right? It could be anything. But
So this was the dad of the person that did the shooting?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. You look it up. He definitely was just like, well,
Oh my
was just worried
God.
that he was blah, 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 blah. You skipped over all of that.
But like, that's why he doing what he doing.
Come on, right? So like, and again, not shooting him bail from a
Jeez.
standpoint of like, this is why he did it, because there's no
Crazy.
excuse for that. But when these people are walking into these situations, right, and they're making these decisions, what are they going through before that like happened in West Virginia? Again, like not West Virginia, Virginia with the football players, right? The empathy, or somebody's different, and allegedly they're saying that he was being bullied by these whoever, right? And he just took it out on whoever. I don't even know if he was being bullied by them, but there was bullying going on. Or there's the Walmart manager that was literally in the break room laughing with his employees and had a list of people that he wanted to kill.
Wow.
Based off of
Wow.
what?
Wow.
Right? And then you took 5 minutes, changed the course of your life and everybody's life forever. Right? So to your point, the empathy and understanding what's on the other side of somebody making that decision, taking time to pause and saying, what is that? Right? Or to your point, the conversations around emotional intelligence, having the ability to have a conversation, and it really starts with us in caring about the person on the other side or close to us.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's your kid, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your brother and sister, maybe it's your best friend, maybe it's your girlfriend or your boyfriend, maybe it's whoever it is, but it starts with having a conversation with them, because what you don't know is what they're potentially dealing with, or why things are triggering them, because your conversation, a way of changing that person's perspective or changing that person's life. So again, how do you change the world? It's not boiling the ocean. It really starts with us.
It starts with us.
2 conversations, 1 conversation, 3 conversations, and understand that you don't always have the platform to do that and get people to see the other side. Just because Shay has a conversation with me doesn't mean I get it. But if she has Tasha have the conversation, I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. I may just be desensitized to you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you recognize you look like somebody I know.
That's true though.
And you kind of look like my mom, dog.
That's
I ain't
true.
really trying
I'm
to
not
do
even
that.
trying to hear that from you.
But if
That's a good point.
Brandon says it, I'm like, I got it. Right? It's like friends that I've had, like they've dealt with trauma, and they may not be able to receive information from a woman because of whatever that reason is. When I see a woman tell me this is what I'm receiving it as. But if a man tells me the same thing, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
got it. Or vice versa, right? So again, you have to kind of unpack some of these things. Don't be so quick to judge and write people off and remove the title from them. Like, oh, well, you ain't my sister no more because you was. Listen, eventually you're going to be on the other side of somebody having to forgive or have empathy and all of those things.
That's good, Corey. I have to shed a little bit more light to that, because you're so right. People can take the same information, and I see this a lot as well. More so with couples that might come in, and I might say something in the session, and the man or the woman may say, this is what I've been saying the whole time, but they receiving it from me, but they cannot receive it from their spouse.
Correct.
Right? And how does one work through that? Like how do, like what you said, if it's coming from a woman, they might not receive it, but if a man says it, they they can take it in because they're desensitized for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think it's so many different reasons as to why that could potentially happen, right? You have to just be invested in it to potentially the answer is. The reason why you're doing it has to be more important. The goal has to be more important than how you feel about it, right? So if I'm willing to hear, like, because sometimes people's reaction are like, you know what, girl, we were just in this counseling session. Shay just told Corey exactly what I've been telling him. Why he listened to her. You make it about everything else. Oh, she got braids. She a therapist. She's X, Y, and Z. There's nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
You could be my abuser. You could have said something to me 3 years ago that triggered me to not be able to respond to you a certain way. And I just don't know how to articulate that to you. Or I may not even recognize it. It may come out later, right? But at the end of the day, you can't necessarily attach that to the person as the counselor. That could be attached to a trauma response, right? But is that what's more important? That they got the message and they're willing to change or change their behavior based off of that, or who they're receiving it from? Because but who taught me that, and I'm still learning, is my children, right? Because as their father, you would feel like, or their parent, period, right? Because it could be their mom too. You feel like, okay, well, you have this level of respect out in the world, and people respond to you and they listen to you. You get home, it don't mean nothing else. Like, what, Dad? What you mean? Right? And they'll challenge that, right? And it doesn't mean that they're not going to listen, but they listen to it in a different way. You're used to getting a certain level of response. But I noticed that with my son, my brother gets a different reaction from it. And that's okay. So, but receiving that and understanding that I have to be, number one is taking your ego out of it, right? And just like when I was growing up, I might not have necessarily listened to my mom and dad the way that, based off of what they were giving me.
Right.
But when my brother said it, it was very different. Because either I related to him, or I had a different level of respect for him, or I've seen him embody it with his children, or it's not authoritative. It's he's really giving me advice. Yeah. I accept advice more than authority. Yeah. Right. So like when you think about some of those things, and again, we get caught up in the world and we're the hamster wheel of life. So we're, but when you take a step back and say, okay, what am I trying to accomplish here? What's my end goal? How do I communicate this differently? All of those things come into play. You may not be the person that gets somebody to change, right? There's a reason why your pastor may be somebody that you embody, or your boss may be somebody that you can. We get information from different people. Yeah, right? We hear it in a song. Like, you know what? Anita Baker changed my life. Right? Right. You know what I mean? But it comes from different sources. So you have to be open to it all.
And I think, again, it goes back to the self-awareness because you need to be aware of how you receive information 100%. As well, right? So a perfect example, one thing I noticed even with myself, right? Here I go, putting my business out there, but it's okay. It's a tone, a person's tone. And I'm sure other people can relate to this, but my mother and my grandmother, my aunt, I was raised by very, very strong, amazing women. And those are the voices that I heard, that I've, heard all my life growing up. My mom, gentle spirit, soul. So when someone is speaking to me, like if I have let's say a man of your stature, and you have bass in your voice, or your voice is a little bit more heavier, and you're saying something to me, but you're really not hollering or yelling or arguing. You're simply just making a statement, or maybe asking me a question, but because of the tone of it, it feels like it doesn't feel comfortable. Correct. Right? Yeah. And I'm okay with saying, like, because I have everything good? Like, you all right, whatever. Like, what are you talking about? Right. I'm just talking to you. Right. And I'm just like, okay. But I had to bring that to that person's attention. Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't grow up with a dad in the household. Yeah. So to hear a man's voice like that, and the deepness of his voice, it so it's like, okay, it got my attention. Yeah. But I don't know how you feeling. Like, are you good? Yeah. Right. So, And I'm sure, I don't know if other people had that experience, but I had to understand what was it? Like, what was it? Why do I, now, what is it? And once I recognize it, I'm like, now I was able to convey it.
Correct.
And able to say, this is what it is.
Right.
You know, I grew up with women, you know, and hearing that bass, that voice or whatever, and, you know, it just feels a little bit different. But they were also a person that speaks a little higher.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Or a little bit louder or
Right.
whatever. So they may be feeling like they're talking normal, but to me, it sounds like you yelling.
I mean, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So once you have, but if you don't understand that and able to convey it, that's an argument.
Oh, 100%. I don't even heard what you said.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know you ain't yelling at me.
Right.
You better check your tone.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
That's a whole argument.
Yeah, 100%.
So you got to be able to understand the self-awareness. And if you don't know what it is, think about it. What is triggering me right now? What is happening right now in this moment that is making me feel uncomfortable, right? We have this thing that we do in therapy. It's called stop, think, and do.
Okay.
You literally have a couple seconds, right? And we usually use this with kids that have ADHD, but also with adults that have issues with impulse. They lack impulse control. You can use this with anything, even in the situation I'm saying.
What was it
right?
called?
Stop, think, and do.
Stop, think, and do.
Right? So if something's going on, like,
Yep.
so if we use that, go on, take them notes.
I am.
If we use that example that I just gave you, right? And literally, that's what I did. I had to stop for a minute. Okay, before I respond, before you react, stop. Think about what is going on right now for you. What are you feeling? Think about the consequence of whatever that action you was ready to take, rather it was something verbally you was ready to say, or if something physically you was about to do. What is the consequence of my action, right? And if it's negative, do something different.
Yeah.
Stop, think, and do. And you literally have seconds to do that. And that's exactly, I stop. Okay, what's going on with me right now? What am I feeling? You know, am I feeling attacked? Am I feeling like, where is this coming from? Right? Think about it. Why am I feeling this way? You know? And then you do something different. And my choice to do something different was, you know what? I think that because I wasn't raised, you know, I had to think about where it was coming from. And it took a minute for me to identify it. But then the way I conveyed it, it was just like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Right,
And
right.
that person had to work on that.
Gotcha.
They had to work on it, you know. And it wasn't a thing of, I got to speak gentle to you.
Right,
It wasn't
right,
even,
right, yeah.
it wasn't that. It was just like, okay, I recognize that, you know, we all grow up in different households.
Yeah, true.
We're raised differently. You know, our behaviors are different. So when it comes together, you know, you don't expect that person to do and say and speak and the same way that you do. If that's the case, then you might as well just be by yourself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So definitely something
good,
to,
though.
yeah. So did we even go to the management?
I don't think so.
That's the last one.
Yeah, that's the last
okay.
one. Yep.
Wow. All right. So the last one will be, what was it?
The management.
Relationship management?
management?
Yeah,
Yeah.
relationship management is the last one. So that is knowing what is necessary to build and maintain a good, honest, healthy relationship. The ability to communicate clearly, which I just talked about, inspire and influence other people, adapt to teamwork, manage conflicts, and accept differences.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you take all the ones that we have talked about, and really, what is your desired outcome, right? When you go to communicate, when you go to respond, when you go to deliver, whatever that is, what is your desired outcome? Are you looking for this person to change? Are you looking for this person to acknowledge what they've done? Are you looking for an apology? All of those things should gear you to how you're going to show up to that conversation, and really understanding what are the things for me that I would want from a respect standpoint inside of my communication style and dealing with this person. I don't want this crazy tone, because who wants to be yelled at?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
I definitely want them to hear what I have to say. Do I do it in an environment that is level for everybody, right? I'm not going to do it in the middle of the game. I'm not doing it in the middle of her paper. I'm not doing it, where she'll have their attention. And really sometimes, I've always been a big fan of really setting the stage. Here's what I want to talk about, or here's the issue that I'm having. What I would like to do is have a conversation about it, and hopefully we can get to the other side of it. Or you're just setting ground rules for your conversation, right? I think when you recap the week, whatever works for you has to work for you, but you have to make sure that it's working.
Right.
Not that you're just getting through it, that
Right.
it's working. If not, then you need to kind of remix what you're doing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because the goal is for change to happen, or we to improve our relationship, or to improve whatever we feel like the deficiency is. And you maybe, you sit down and you develop whatever that plan is together, kind of like you just said, right?
Yeah.
Here are the things that I do like. Here are my deal breakers. Cross this line. This is where it's going to go. We stay inside of this box. We good. You know what I mean? So that's how you kind of manage your relationship, and it has to be for you though. What works on IG, Facebook, TikTok, all of these other things is
Right.
not you.
Right.
Twitter, right? We
Right.
see how that goes, right? Whatever works for you is for you and y'all.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
You know where I think this is important in your overall relationships, but you know where I think it's really, really important? A parent to a child.
Very true.
I really do. I think that if you're able to have relationship management when it comes down to your children, man, could you imagine what you build them up to be?
Yeah.
I mean, they will be very, confident, children that are able to, be aware of themselves and others, empathetic, able to convey their feelings, emotionally intelligent. And that's what this whole conversation was about tonight. It's important. All of these things, and I have to give this was Corey's topic tonight. Corey brought this to the table tonight, and I thank you for doing this, because I think we all should be looking at, how did I show up in 2022?
Right. Yeah.
And really be honest with yourself. Like, how did I show up? Think about that, and then think about how you want to show up in 2023. We shouldn't be doing the same things that we did 5 years ago. We shouldn't be still doing those things. You're not evolving if you are.
Right.
And that's what we're here for, right? We're supposed to be evolving.
Yeah. True.
Right? So, and part of evolving is being able to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically, right? But a lot of us we're 40, 50, 60 years old, and emotionally, we still stuck at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old.
Very true.
Right? We still stuck at whatever trauma we went through, and we still blaming, because my daddy went home or because my mama went home, we still blaming everything bad that's going on in our lives. We still blaming it on that.
Yeah, true.
So it's really time to really be accountable. I think that's one of the ones that probably should have been in here, is being able to be accountable, and just be that change. Again, Gandhi said it best: be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yep. Agreed.
Right.
And I think to your point, the accountability also comes with being kind to yourself, understanding that nobody really has this world figured out. And just because you've been doing it for 45 years or 41 years or whatever that looks like, doesn't mean that doesn't make you an expert, because this thing changes all the time. But being accountable to yourself, being kind to yourself on what you're going through, and being able to talk to yourself in a way that makes sense to you, so it can make sense to everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys if you're able to apply those 4 things, I promise you, not only will you will feel better as a person, and you will see the growth within yourself, but your relationships will be much healthier.
100%.
And that's what we want for 2023.
Yes. 2023.
This was amazing.
It was good.
This was really, really good. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Yes, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you got some gems out of this conversation, and you can take it and apply it for 2023. This was a great show, and this was our last show for 2022. However, we will be back January 9th, back 2023 for the new year, a new rebirth. We have new events coming up. It's just a whole new flavor for the whole show. So I'm very excited about that. In the meantime, I hope you guys have an amazing holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you, Corey.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody be safe out there. And I think lastly, make sure that you tell the people that you love and care about how you feel. Don't let days go by and issues go by without, because tomorrow ain't promised.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. Shout out to Eli.
Yes, happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday.
I seen that walking dance you did.
Yeah.
That was something.
Eli will be back with us in 2023. Again, we have the Rebirth Live coming up March 25th. We actually got a date for that. So that would be March 25th, 2023. We wish you guys an amazing holiday. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And until then, I will see you in 2023. Thank you for supporting us here at the Rebirth and Philly Jamz 95.3. Good night.